They keep finding new ways to do things. Ready to start? If you can, stand up close to the screen to see. You can. You got your leg. You can get up for that. This is what it's called. Something I mentioned the other day, an alfamiado text. Does anyone remember what alfamiado means? And I'm going to pass this book around. And we're going to go back to the question in just a second. It's page 110, where you can see this text written in Arabic script, and then you will see a version of it written in Latin script on the facing page. So it's called the Poema de Yusuf, which means the poem of Joseph, the story of Joseph in the Old Testament. How many remember that story? The Poema de Yusuf. The poem of Joseph, the story of Joseph, told by his brothers. Right, he goes to Egypt. How does he become famous? How does he get recognition? He becomes he's an interpreter of dreams. You know.
Yes. I was trying to think of how he sort of first brought attention to himself. You know, years ago, I was teaching a class on Israel, and I had a student who claimed to know this is really a powerhouse student. I'll be careful not to describe the person in too much detail, but she was constantly talking about her knowledge of modern theories of interpretation, modern critical theories, cultural studies, and so on. And we were talking about this poem, and I said, well, do you know that we were called Jose? Joseph was, he became known for someone who could interpret dreams, and he interpreted Pharaoh's dream. Remember about the cows, the fat ones would be the years of, rich harvest. The years where the cows were these are the years of famine. So you need to save. You need to save way ahead. And of course, he was rewarded and was given a wonderful position. And he eventually saw the brothers who had sold him. And he had pity on them. At first he's a little bit hesitant, but they were jealous of him. This story, I tell my students sometimes, if you don't know these Bible stories, and that's how you have to talk, in a secular context, you don't have a chance when it comes to medieval or Renaissance literature, because you don't know any of the foundation for all the stories, for all the characters, and so on and so on. I said, you really don't have a chance. I said, so I want to compliment those of you who were raised Southern Baptist, because I know that in almost in every case, when I ask you a question, you remember the Bible story, right, from your classes, and I think that's wonderful. But the best way for, these are just ideas that are coming to be sort of a free-floating way. The best way for a Roman Catholic to become really familiar with all the Bible stories, the best way of all, in my opinion, is to always go to daily mass. Because if you do that, you hear the entire scripture as it unfolds. Daily, you have these passages, and it's just wonderful because after a few years, you know all the stories, you remember them, you remember the refrains, and it's wonderful. And that is really the way many people, especially in the early modern period, knew scripture. They just knew the story instantly. They could hear a reference and they would know, or they would hear the first half of a line and they would know the second half immediately because they had heard it so many times that for them it was very, very familiar. And in a time of, please just stay on this page. This is wonderful. There's even a mention here of someone named Ramon Menendez Guinal, whom I was going to talk about today. But an Al-Hamiado text is, I asked earlier, does anyone remember? It's a text which is in Spanish, but it's written usually in Arabic characters. I said, of course you can do this. You can write one language with the script of another. We do this with Nahuatl, right? We can write Nahuatl easily with Roman characters. We can do this, not with all languages, but to a certain extent. You can write one language in the script of another. Jews did this and have done this for centuries and centuries and centuries with Judeo-Spanish, which has many names. What is another name for Judeo-Spanish? Judeo-Spanish is usually the linguistic name for this form of Spanish. Ladino is the most common name given to Judeo-Spanish, and in the early centuries after the expulsion, Ladino, which is Judeo-Spanish, was typically written in Hebrew script. Even though there were people who knew Hebrew only as a ceremonial language, only as a language of liturgy, they did not speak Hebrew at all. When did Hebrew come back as a spoken language, as a language that people would use in daily discourse? Does anyone know?
In 40.
Or
In the 1940s.
it was with these modern state of Israel. Modern, probably in the years leading up to statehood, was already more and more an important language in use in Palestine in the time of the Protectorate and so on. You can be sure that some of the early Zionists also were probably people who there were big debates, actually, in what is now the state of Israel. What language will be the language of the state of Israel? Some said, well, maybe it should be Yiddish. Since so many Jews were Ashkenazic, right from the east, it should be Yiddish. And some of the great founders of the modern state of Israel, in fact, have been Yiddish speakers or come from Yiddish homes or were from the east. People like Gershom Scholl, many. And so well, maybe it should be that. And another said, well, what about English? English is becoming a world language. Maybe it should be English. That was actually easily dismissed. Others said, what about German? German made sense, right? Until the time of Holocaust. Afterwards, it could not be German. German's a language of culture, even in the vibrant years. If you don't believe me, look how many Germans won Nobel Prizes in sciences, in literature, and so on in the 1930s. It's true, 20s and 30s, those were great years for German culture in one way. In one way. And in another way, they were the years of catastrophic decisions that would lead to the destruction of millions of people. Like in the days of the Al-Hama, and the Al-Hama means the Arabic in the areas in the Iberian Peninsula under Christian rule during the time of the Reconquest, the Islamic peoples were put in their district, and that was called the Al-Hama. The Al-Hama, and the language, the script is called, when Spanish is written in Arabic characters, it's called Texto Alhamiado. This is a Texto Alhamiado, which I'm passing the book around so you can see, the facing pages. Now, there were also cases of Spanish written in Hebrew, because the Jews also lived in segregated communities. Does anyone know what those communities were called? In Spain. The name for those communities is the Juderia. The Juderia. We can say in modern day, Juderia, as a Judeo, Jew, Juderia. The neighborhood was called in medieval Spanish Juderia. The Juderia is where the Jews lived. Many cities had Juderias. Big Jewish neighborhoods. See if you can name a city in Spain. Name one, and I'll tell you if they had a big Juderia or not.
Toledo.
Toledo still has 2 synagogues historically preserved as museums. Sinagoga de Tránsito is the most famous, which is now the National Museum of Jewish Life in Spain. Sinagoga de Tránsito, the other one is La Sinagoga Blanca, which is also still intact. Toledo, another city. Madrid, not to my knowledge. Madrid actually doesn't flourish until later. There's Maria la Blanca in Toledo. This is magnificent, preserved. Córdoba. Córdoba had a large Juderia, and in fact, one of the most famous of all Jewish writers, the most famous Jewish, I would say, the most famous Jewish philosopher ever, was born in Córdoba. His name was in English, Moses Maimonides. Moisés Maimonides. Maimonides is also known as Moses, son of Moses. Moses bin Maimonides, the son of Moses. His father was also a famous rabbi. That is actually the little statue outside the Sinagoga de Córdoba, which is one of the few preserved. Some try to say that Maimonides' house. That's not true at all. But with these tourist things, you always have to kind of go with the flow. But if we could go back to a previous slide, we were looking at something that to me is fascinating, this whole history of the Spanish language. And there's a mention here. It says the most complete manuscript, according to Menendez-Vidal. Please leave that picture up there. I was thinking of Menendez-Vidal today because I was actually writing about one of his books. I used to hear his name, Menendez-Vidal, when I was a student in the mid-1970s. He died in 1968. He was 99 years old. But he left such a powerful impact on Spanish letters, Spanish philology, which is the history of the language, the historical linguistics, and also just the history of Spain. He headed up the project that was like the official history of Spain in 18 volumes, and each of the volumes are like that big. He was this amazing person. He had a passion for all things Spanish. So much so that he went all throughout Latin America looking for romances. Who can tell me what romances are, or romances? In the Spanish, you probably used to hear romances, which usually belong to collections called romanceros, or sometimes cancioneros. They're popular ballads. Popular ballads. Songs that are part of folklore, and Menendez-Vidal was the greatest collector. Look at this. It says he worked extensively in the history of Spanish and Spanish folklore and folk poetry. He knew all the romances, which we're talking now about thousands of texts. He knew them, he learned them, he memorized them, because he loved all things Spanish. He loved all things Spanish. He would have been the perfect representative for some sort of a big celebration of El Día de la Hispanidad now in Spain. What day is that? El Día de la Hispanidad. Can you tell me? It is October the 12th. How did you? The only thing worse than having a student who thinks he's smarter in the class is having someone do the technology who helps the students cheat. It's incredible. Let's go back to that if we can. This is called El Día de la Hispanidad, right? And it's October 12th. What was October 12th? Usually both before now and then earlier. Please loud. Columbus Day, yes. What happened to Columbus Day? Who can tell me what happened to Columbus Day? Go ahead. We don't seem to celebrate it anymore. Very good observation. We have volunteer. You were the first volunteer. No one liked it. No one liked it. That's the perfect answer. No one likes Columbus anymore. No one likes Columbus anymore. In fact, there are people you can be sure who like it trying as a water criminal. No one likes Columbus anymore. And it's kind of sad because actually Columbus Day can have many meanings, and they don't all have to be negative. You can be sure that for someone like Menendez-Vidal, the man I was just talking about, the great historian of Spain, who had traveled all over the Spanish-speaking world collecting popular ballads, folk ballads, folk songs. For him, I think October 12th, in his day, would have been a very, very, very important day, because even though Columbus was not born in Spain, he's very closely connected with Spain. Now, I would like for someone, all here in this class, who's been in the class before, to tell everyone what Columbus's connection is with Spain. Well, let's start with that. He was, after he had been turned down by other monarchs, he was actually finally given a chance to carry out this voyage that he firmly believed in. It was approved
and in part funded by the Spanish monarchs. He said, yes. Who were the Spanish? This one named. This is incredible. This is actually, this is an image that for us depicts the return of Columbus to a place called Atenas in Barcelona. When he got back from the first voyage, he brought with him people from the New World. Here he is seen standing before King Fernando from Aragon. Fernando de Aragon, who is married Isabel la Católica, and they are referred to often as the Catholic King, Reyes Católicos. This is really quite an impressive image. I've actually seen this very image visiting me in Barcelona. Columbus, though not Spanish, and we're not absolutely sure where he was born. I need to say this. Many people say, oh, that was cleared up long ago, this was in Genoa. Well, I'd like to see that record. Because that doesn't seem, that's not so easy to find. Are you a burglar? I want you from this moment on just ignore that lady who's he did have permission and he did have support from the Catholic monarchs, Reyes Católicos, as I call them, the Catholic monarchs, the Catholic kings. So he sails from a port called Huelva near a monastery called La Rábida, Franciscan monastery, where he leaves his two sons. Fernando and Diego, they're very young. He leaves them at La Rábida. He doesn't know for sure he'll be back. He believes he will be back. He's absolutely certain. But he thinks he's going to go clear around the world. He does think that. His calculations are off, but the idea of going west to get to the east was an idea. He's not the only person who believed it, but he believed in it enough to actually try. And for a while, wasn't sure what was going to happen, because for a long time, the three little vessels didn't see any land. The first person who spots land, he would say later, gets this huge reward. Turns out he didn't get the reward. But he certainly did something that was amazing in its time. And for the longest time, century after century, Columbus was praised as like the great discoverer, of the New World, the discoverer of America. In fact, you can be sure when I was a kid growing up in the provinces, Wichita, Kansas, there were relatively people who believed, as I did, that Columbus had discovered the United States of America. But as we know, that's not true. There's no truth to that at all. In fact, he had gone to a place that already existed. Does anyone remember exactly where he went on his first voyage? Where he ended up? The place he called, right, Hispaniola, which we would now call the Dominican Republic. He was there in the Caribbean. He did see something, as far as we know, no other European had seen. He traveled in a way, as far as we know, that no other European had traveled. He saw all these things. But really, the biggest accomplishment is that after he had done this, and of course, the whole trip is documented, many others would soon want to do it. And within a few short years, hundreds and hundreds of people from Spain had gone to the New World, and many of them had decided, in fact, to stay there. They stayed sometimes for years at a time because they saw possibilities. Many of them had gone off and come to the New World with almost nothing and said, look, what do I have to lose? I'll go there, I'll find things, and I'll become rich. They didn't realize how difficult it was going to be. This is still the case. I think often when people go to a new land, they go, it's, I'm gonna be rich there, it's not gonna take any time at all. And soon in the Spanish-speaking world, the United States becomes, instead of Los Estados Unidos, Los Esclavos Unidos, right? What does Los Esclavos Unidos mean? It's the place of slavery. Esclavos Unidos, you become a slave to work. That's an exaggeration, we know. That's just one exaggerated view. When we speak of exaggerated views, let's go back to Columbus for a second. Columbus, this is very, very important in the history of Spain because it's because of Columbus's first voyage that the New World opens up to the Spanish. And the Spanish, as we know, in a very short time, are able to conquer one land after another and establish cities, settlements, and implement Spanish law, Spanish juridical practice, all kinds of Spanish customs are taken to the New World, and New World customs are taken back to Spain. Spain becomes the most powerful empire in the world not that long after Columbus. By the mid-16th century, this has happened. But all of this means that the Spanish-speaking world spread from Spain, which is about the size of the state of Texas. You know, the size of the nation, Spain. Its empire spreads everywhere. We've done the exercise before in other classes. I won't do it today because I don't want to embarrass anyone. Where each one of us names a territory that was once part of Spain. It's easy to do with a group this size. It's amazing how large that world was. And this is only one face. There's much more to the Spanish Empire, as we know. But when we speak of El Día de la Hispanidad, we're talking about a day we celebrate Hispanic identity. Where does Hispanic identity come from? It comes originally from Spain, from the Latin name Hispania. Hispania, the name for Spain in Latin. So that if someone is Hispanic, if you're using the term correctly and appropriately, it means someone whose heritage is either from Spain or one of the former Spanish colonies or one of the current Spanish possessions. There are many, 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 many nations, as we know, 22 just in Latin America. All of these are part of the Hispanic world, and all of these celebrate El Día de la Hispanidad. Not everyone in all of these places celebrates this. There are many people now more and more resistant to celebrating El Día de la Hispanidad. Why would they be resistant? Why would anyone be resistant?
Same reason they are here about Columbus.
Absolutely, because there are plenty of people who say, but what did the Spanish do? They came, they enslaved us, and they destroyed everything. That's a very simplistic view. Very simplistic view, but becoming more and more popular. Very, very simplistic. Very simplistic. But we find it more and more, like, it's very important to know at least what the term means, where it comes from, why it's celebrated. Many people in the Spanish-speaking world are very happy to be called Hispanic, and are very happy to celebrate a kind of the festival that celebrates their heritage, their Hispanic heritage. The Hispanic world, as we know, includes people of many, many, many races. What are some examples? When you think of Spain, especially if you think of a Spain from, let's say, the early 20th century, you think mostly of people who seem to look mostly alike, but that's not the Spanish-speaking world. That's one place. The Spanish-speaking world is broad. Think of all the African peoples that form part of the Spanish-speaking world. Where do we find some of these African peoples
Jennifer Jarvis.
Look behind you.
Where do we find some of these descendants or people from the African diaspora in the Spanish-speaking world? Where would name a country where we would find many?
From the continent of Africa?
Well, from the African diaspora, the people who
Oh.
were taken. In this case, were taken as slaves from Africa. Yes. Who was an excellent example? All right, the Dominican Republic. Other places where you would find people who are the descendants of African slaves.
Right here.
Other places. Okay, I've heard Cuba. I've heard. Absolutely. Other places. No. Again, these are British in tradition, British colonial tradition. Can you name another place? Again, that's really from the British colonial tradition. Can you name another place? Which one? Costa Rica, very small. It's a small community, but there are, in fact, yes. Another place? Go ahead.
No, I don't know.
I bet you do. What if I said Mexico? You say, no, that's not possible. Well, actually, it is possible. Mexico had two huge slave ports. Does anyone know what two cities I'm talking about? Two very, very large slave ports. One was Acapulco. Acapulco was a slave port. And that state, Guerrero, had entire communities that in some cases still exist, called Costa Chica, that were all descendants of African slaves. Another city, another important slave port in Mexico, Veracruz. Very important in the history of the slave trade. Other nations in the Spanish-speaking world that have lots of people from the African diaspora. Venezuela, very good answer. Near Venezuela. Colombia, especially in the area near Cartagena, which was the most famous, Cartagena de India, the most famous of its slave ports. There are people from Peru who sometimes say that Peru is a nation which is Afro-Indo-Sino-Hispano. Afro-Indo, Native American, Sino, Asian. Sino, Japanese, Hispano, Afro, Indo-Sino, Hispano, there are Asian people in Cuba. I'm told that there was a large Chinese community in Cuba at one time. Other cities in the Spanish-speaking world also have larger Asian communities. Peru, curiously, had a president who was a descendant of Japanese immigrants. What was his name? His name was Alberto Fujimori. His nickname, I know this is going to sound bad, what was his nickname? El Chino. El Chino. I remember once, because Chino, in the Spanish-speaking world, for a lot of people, means Asian. It doesn't mean Chinese, it means Asian. And I remember we had a writer here once at OU who was from Argentina, who was, I'm sure it was for her hard to be in a place like Norman, Oklahoma, where she felt like a fish out of water, and I could tell she was very uncomfortable the whole time she was here. And at a dinner, we were talking about Peru, and I made a joke about a Chino, and she said, "A Chino, no tiene nada que ver con Chino, es japonés." You know, she was standing there correcting me, and I just thought, I don't know exactly how to respond. I mean, because I'm a representative of my university, and I don't want to say, "You idiot." And it was really the right thing to say, but I said, "Sí que el nombre, el apodo, what's apodo?" The nickname, and she didn't know that. She had no clue. She just said she knew that this person was from, there he is, that wonderful leader, that wonderful charismatic leader, known for corruption, torture. I remember when they captured the leader, this is actually something that I had mixed feelings, but when he captured the leader of Sendero Luminoso, the worst terrorist movement in Peru, the Shining Path, Sendero Luminoso, he said, no tenemos pena de muerte. Translate for me. No tenemos pena de muerte. We don't have the death penalty. Pero yo me hago personalmente responsable por su vida. Pero yo me hago, I'll make myself personalmente responsable por su vida, for his life. So he said, no tenemos pena de muerte, pero yo me hago personalmente responsable por su vida. Oh, those beautiful words. Fujimori, I'm sure when he said that, he had huge support because Sendero Luminoso had a huge impact on Peruvian society, Peruvian economy, and Peruvian tourism. For a long time, it wasn't safe to visit some of the most important tourist sites in Peru because you would have to pass by some of the areas controlled by Sendero Luminoso. So you have Asian people, you have people from the African diaspora, of course, Europeans. Let's name some of the European communities that we find in large numbers of in certain Latin American nations. Let's see if we can think of some. Besides the Spanish, obviously, we have name a country and name a large European community of immigrants that exists in that country. Go ahead.
Argentina, Germany.
Argentina, Germany, excellent. Argentina, you could say many nations there, right? What is the most visible group of all the, besides the Spanish, the most visible group in Argentina? There are jokes about this, about the Italian, about the tourist from Buenos Aires who goes to Rome and he looks at the photos and he says, Tanto apellido argentino. I'm sorry, that was supposed to be funny. Oh, so many names from Argentina. Yeah, well, actually, it's the other way around, Jose. It's because of your Italian background that there are so many names in this book. Other nations, not just people from Italy, not just people from Germany. Let's name a few more places. What about Portuguese? Do you think there are a lot of Portuguese immigrants in the Spanish-speaking world?
Yes.
Many. One place is Venezuela. I don't know how many are left. But certainly-
Still some.
At one time, I'm told that, is it most of the panaderos,
Um,
most of the people who own bakeries?
We have a lot of people from Spain, Portugal,
All kinds of clubs, right? Like Club Español, Club Gallego,
Italians,
Club Vizcaya.
Germans.
You see the same thing in Mexico. Did you know that? You see many different clubs of Spanish groups from different parts of Spain. How about this one? What city in the Spanish-speaking world has the largest Jewish population? Without a doubt, Buenos Aires. Huge Jewish population with newspapers in Yiddish, in Hebrew, and Latino. Very large. That's also part of this world we call Mundo Hispano. Hispanic world, which all came, as I say, from the Roman Spain, Hispania. Sometimes you hear people from Latin America refer to themselves as Latino. Is that term a correct term? In a way it is, because they come from the tradition of the Latin languages. Do you remember Latin languages? The Romance languages? So if they're a Latino, so is an Italian. So is a person from southern France. So is a person, right? So is a person from Sicily. So is a person from Sardinia. They're all Latinos. The term is used colloquially now, though, to refer to people typically from Latin America. But El Día de la Hispanidad celebrates all of this. It celebrates all of this diversity. It celebrates all of this world. Very inclusive. It's a large large world. And it also is a big part of, the United States of America. A big part of the history, which we've already learned from our classes here, but it's also very much a part of the world in which we live in today. And within a couple of decades, it is said that there will be 100 million Hispanic people in this country by the year 2050. We don't know if it's true. That's the prediction. That's from an official statement from the American bishops. That is a very, very impressive number. 100 million people. That is part of the Mundo Hispano, a big part. One of the nations, the largest number of Spanish-speaking people, United States of America, because many of the Spanish-speaking nations actually aren't that large. Many of them have rather small populations, right? Think of the nations of Central America, typically very small. I think here it's very nice. That statistic that you just had on there was very nice, and then just as I said it, you removed it. There it is. Notice that the Hispanic growth rate over the April 1st, 2000 to July 1st, 2007 period was 28.7%, about 4 times the rate of the nation's total population. This population is young, very young. And when a population is young, that means it's going to grow. It's going to grow by leaps and bounds. So we are celebrating still this month. El mes de la Hispanidad. And I think that we should give ourselves a round of applause. All right. You know who your teacher is? Is anyone lost? Does anyone not know where they're going for their class? There's still a little bit of food left. I let you out a little early. If you have a question, if it's a general question, you can ask now in front of everyone, or if it's a private question, you can come up and ask. You do have, yeah, you do have, especially you do have in many of the United States.
I know it.
Yeah, I just have to
El suave cerebro es muy fresquito, el cambio que nos da. Ah, no, ya con.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. It's all gone. Yeah. I done my kids walking away that company. I used to play.
I totally agree.
Having your kids start taking it and stuff.